Rush Limbaugh was the biggest star in talk radio, and every weekday for 3 decades, he A, told us so, and B, showed us why. He led the rescue mission for AM radio back when music migrated to FM, and he led a parade of Me Too political talkers, hosting what has become one great big Democrats, bad Republicans, good show. For nearly a year, Limbaugh soldiered on with advanced lung cancer, and he died in February. But Rush Limbaugh does not rest in peace. For the last 3 months, adoring guest hosts who call themselves guides have been playing back recordings of Rush, straining to relate what he said in the past to what's happening today. This awkward weekend at Bernie's effect has, for instance, asked a dead man to critique President Biden's address to Congress the morning after, or to react to the Derek Chauvin verdict. And just this week, we were told day 10 of the Hamas-Israel conflict. Here's what Rush thinks. Very awkward to hear the author of this script, now fallen silent, being brought back into talk radio. Where do we go from here? Let's ask David Bernstein, who has programmed some of the most respected talk stations in America, now teaching media studies at the university level. And deep in the heart of Texas, we have Paul Gleiser, himself a popular conservative radio and TV pundit. And Paul owns radio stations that carried the Rush Limbaugh Show. Paul, you gotta tell the story. How did you get Rush Limbaugh, and how did you replace him?
I bought this radio station in 1994, and it was the incumbent talk station. It was a big AM signal at the time, but it didn't have Rush because the prior owner owned an adult contemporary FM station, the one that he cared about. And when they were trying to form the Rush Limbaugh EIB network, he just didn't return the phone calls. And so Rush Limbaugh wound up on 2 really bad AM radio stations, one each in Tyler and Longview. This is a hyphenated market that operated synchronously, and they were hard to find on the dial, poor coverage, terrible radio stations, but they had Rush and were doing okay because they had Rush. And it became clear to me that I needed Rush, and I went to the then owner and I said, look, either you got to buy my station or I got to buy yours, because Rush needs to be on this big signal AM that I own. And he said, well, yeah, I'm not buying yours, you can buy mine. So I paid $1 million for 2 really bad AM radio stations in order to get the Rush Limbaugh Show. And I told people, I paid $1 million for Rush, and they threw in 2 AM radio stations at no charge. And that almost literally is how I valued the purchase. I paid $1 million for the program.
All right, well, back to the future. How have you replaced Rush?
Well, it was a watershed event, because unlike a whole lot of routine programming decisions that we made, this one has real impact on the future of the company. And the listeners care more deeply about this programming decision than any other one that we could make. So I gave listeners a voice, and we auditioned the competing talk shows, the shows that want to be in line to replace Rush. There's a bunch of them. We auditioned them over a period of 5 weeks, 1 week each, including asking listeners to weigh in on the guided version of the Rush Limbaugh Show. And we just listened to the feedback, and we listened to our own ears. And we made the decision that we made. We went with a fresh show called Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon. And in my opinion, it's the first fresh thing to come along in a long, long time.
I think you're right. All the others are basically doing the same sorehead show, and Jimmy is of good cheer, something that is rare in talk radio. David, you know both playbooks because you have managed stations that have Rush Limbaugh and stations that compete with Rush Limbaugh. And when you were at the helm at WOR in New York, you had some political talkers, but you also had shows about finance and law. You even had a great pet show. And these shows were networked nationally from WOR. Must talk radio be typecast as politics?
Well, if it is, it's over. It's a bad idea to typecast anything as something else. If you say talk radio, and talk is something that we all do, you say talk radio is only about politics, that means in life the most important thing that we're talking about is politics. And there's a whole lot more to life than politics. You have family. You have the things that matter to you. We have lifestyle programs on radio that have been on for all of its 100 years. We even had in Providence, Rhode Island, WPRO had a pet show. We did have a pet show, but we had a pest control show. And I was not expecting that show would last until I heard the host and realized how entertaining he is. And when I heard that, I gave the guy another hour of airtime. I loved the show. No, we cannot live on
the guy's a rock star.
Yeah,
true.
and he's funny, and he's entertaining.
You brought Joan Rivers to talk radio, and I gotta think, Paul mentioned Jimmy Fallon, who himself is a stand-up guy. I gotta think there's an opening for a smile, don't you think, David?
Well, it's funny. I brought in Joan Rivers looking for the smile. Joan came in, thought that talk radio is so political and angry that she started doing political and angry radio. And I started getting listener complaints saying, I just want to tune in to have some fun. Why is Joan talking about Middle East war when I want to hear her laugh about stuff on the red carpet? And that's when you realize that life is so much more than just politics. And radio should reflect that, because radio reflects society. It doesn't lead society.
Thank you. Although the game changed with the infamous Telecom Act of 1996, when the FCC lifted limits on how many stations any one company could own. Wall Street pigged out. Big corporate radio wildly overpaid, buying up stations from the operators like Paul that guys our age wistfully refer to as mom and pop owners. Paul, with debt service crippling these big publicly owned companies, and talk radio now addicted to the syndicated shows and the music FMs with robotic DJs. Can radio still afford local programming, which will always be their silver bullet against these new digital competitors?
Well, from an income statement and balance sheet perspective of the big companies, you say no, but on the other hand, they can't afford not, because it's the only salvation of the industry. And you say addicted to syndicated shows. This radio station runs a lot of syndicated shows, but we have a locally staffed newsroom. And we are, and the people that are the local voices that are on this radio station are well known in the community. And nobody in this market looks upon my radio station as something from out of town. They see it as the local radio station.
They sure do. We're talking with Paul Gleiser, himself a conservative radio and TV pundit and radio station owner in Texas, and veteran broadcast executive David Bernstein, now teaching media studies at the university level. David, much of talk radio is the Daily Downer report. The sky is falling. Our grandchildren are screwed. On TV, fringe players like Newsmax and One America News are one-upping Fox News, which demonizes Dr. Fauci. We've got young Carlson telling us to call the police if we spot parents with masked children, and taking the bait. The lefties on MSNBC anger back with their hollering. How does all this play with the 19-year-olds you interact with teaching? And is this noise in the legacy media forcing young people to adopt podcasting?
Well, the young people don't hear the same noise that we old people hear, because the young people aren't listening to the same things that we old people are listening to. They don't listen to talk radio. They may hear it from somebody else. Remember, a lot of 19-year-olds now spent the last year living with their parents. So the influence of peers is not really there, not in the year of COVID. So as they spend the year with their parents, they're exposed to what their parents are hearing. But the parents are also exposed to what the teachers are sharing in the classroom, because the classroom is now home. So I have parents who are actually feeding in to the class to get into a discussion. And I think that that's okay, because it brings generations together. As far as podcasting goes, the 19-year-old doesn't see much of a difference between radio and podcasting. because it's all an audio show that they can listen to whenever they find convenient. So to them, when you say a podcast, in their heads, it might be a radio show. And when you say a radio show, they think of it as a podcast.
Yeah, it's all audio. Paul, about digital, the ears aren't the only thing migrating from legacy media to digital. So are the dollars. There are plumbers and others buying keywords on Google, money that used to be spent on legacy media. We know newspapers are in a tailspin. Are you feeling the heat there with your stations from digital competitors?
Yes, but not as much now as 2 years ago, because the bloom is a little bit off the rose on the magic of digital and the micro targeting that it offers and the accountability that they say it offers. They've tried it. A lot of our advertisers have tried it, and it hasn't been the magic thing they wanted. What every advertiser wants is, I want a clear, bright line between the money I spend and the results that it gets. They thought digital would do that, and it hasn't. It has the same limitations as all advertising. Half my advertising is working, half of it's wasted. I just don't know which half. The old line. So the bloom is off the digital rose to a great degree with the advertisers that I talk to, and in fact, here I look upon the money lost to digital as being at the expense of the yellow pages, and of course, you just mentioned the newspaper. We always in radio were trying to get those dollars. And now digital's getting them, but there are plenty of dollars available for radio stations if they will do the right things, which is be local, serve the local advertisers, serve the local community, and make the connection between business owner and customer that radio has a unique ability to do if it will just do it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is tremendous wariness about click fraud. All we're getting is clicks, but we're not getting customers walking in the door. And what these digital gurus seem to be peddling is you'll show up well in search. Heck, if I want a plumber and I search plumbers, I'm going to get 10 plumbers. What they ought to be doing is using radio to own plumbing in the listener's mind. But hey, call me old school. David Bernstein, Paul Gleiser, thank you for stepping into the big picture. Come again.
Thanks, Holland.
And thank you for watching The Big Picture. We'll be back again next week with another show, same time if you watch in real time. And if you can't, set your DVR for DirecTV channel 321. On the Dish, we are 280, and on any device. You can find the live stream at youtube.com/RTAmerica. All of my shows, almost 4 years worth of them, are at youtube.com/thebigpictureRT. And all of the above and a whole heck of a lot more is on our cool portable TV app. Free in the App Store and Google Play or at portable.tv. If you're a hockey fan, you're gonna love it. I'm Holland Cooke, at Holland Cooke on Twitter, where if you follow me, I'll follow you. Question more.